Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning into Spreeisms, my blog all about mental health and finding ways to protect your peace. I'm Kirsten Spreewell, aka Spree, your resident therapist, and on today's vlog, I'm going to be sharing about my personal story with anxiety. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how I even found out I had anxiety and how I manage anxiety on a daily basis without medication. So get into the story time with me, and hopefully there's something that you can use in your personal battle with anxiety, or something you might find useful enough to share with a friend. Stay tuned.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself. You gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Better protect yourself.
So I guess we would start this vlog off by discussing my earliest memory of a panic attack or anxiety attack of some sort. I was leaving my apartment in Auburn, Alabama, and going to class in Tuskegee, Alabama. And when I got off the exit, this is all in retrospect because at the time I didn't know, but I started to experience some physical symptoms of anxiety. My chest was getting a little tight, like my palms were sweating, and I was just kind of feeling nervous, but I didn't know what really was going on at the time. As I, continued to drive toward campus, a squad car got behind me, the police got behind me, and obviously this is something that's additionally nerve-wracking, but I was already experiencing feelings of nervousness or some tension, and so when they got behind me, it escalated or elevated the symptoms. So I began to have a lot of different thoughts going on in my head. I began to sweat a little more, and I was just feeling more tense in my chest. And so I was, trying to talk to myself. I was trying to breathe because I was having trouble breathing. So it was very different from how I handle my anxiety now. It was very nerve-wracking and a little confusing. Like, what was that about? I think I just had an anxiety attack. I don't know what was going on. And, so I ended up pulling to the side of the road and, trying to breathe and kind of get my bearings right. And of course the cops weren't behind me for me. That was just, they just happened to be driving behind me. So they kept driving as I pulled off to the side of the road and regained my composure. Now, after that situation, which was sophomore and junior year of college, I began to be more aware of when I was experiencing those anxiety symptoms. Shaking, palm sweating, chest getting tight, a lot of different thoughts in my head, racing thoughts. I noticed I was having these symptoms in social settings or in just different settings that I never particularly thought, oh, I can't deal with big crowds, or I can't deal with that type of setting. I began to learn a lot more about myself and just become more aware that this is a thing for me. Now, completely separate from that, I had a friend who was teaching me about meditation and guiding me in meditations and talking to me a lot about spirituality. So I began to engage in meditations and really practice different things that he was telling me about. Whether it was, use of crystals or just different forms of meditation, and about chakras and alignment and all of that. And so as I was getting into some of that in a very surface manner, but also delving into meditation, I noticed that my anxious symptoms and my anxiety was under control, but it wasn't intentionally at all. It was just something that I started to notice in retrospect. Like when I was starting to meditate, I noticed that I didn't have anxiety. as much. So fast forward to when I moved to Georgia after undergrad, I began to have a lot of new experiences. And just sidebar, the meditation and a lot of the things that I was doing early on kind of were just for a period of time, or like a theme that I was experiencing during that time. So it didn't stay consistent and it didn't elevate. So like I was saying, as I moved to Georgia and I was experiencing all these new things, I was in grad school, which I didn't think was particularly stressful for me because I was good at being a student. But everything was new. I was, kind of on my own, and I was trying to learn how to be an adult or figure out whatever that meant to me. So I began to have anxiety again. Things got worse than they had been ever for me. I was having more panic attacks and pretty much daily anxiety. Like, it was the norm for me. And so whether it was, sweaty palms or racing thoughts, or a lot of times it would just be my heart beating really fast and having a bunch of different thoughts in my head that I kind of had to like figure out or try to silence so that I can just, make a clear decision. Different things like that were happening more frequently. So I ended up going to therapy, and that was kind of like the next stage of my experience, my relationship with anxiety. Really, to come clean, it was really one situation that I was going to therapy for. Pretty much one situation that I was going to therapy for, and I ended up getting like tricked into learning all these other new things about me and learning how my anxiety really started to affect different facets of my life. So I thought I was going to be addressing like this relationship and like adjusting to this new city and stuff like that, but it really taught me a lot about myself, and a lot of CBT is what my therapist was doing, CBT, and like how my thoughts and how my perspective affect my relationships, affect the way that I move, just my worldview in general, and how that plays out in my behavior. And so I started to notice and I started to learn what my triggers were, which was something I never really went through with myself. And that's something I know very well now. I know it triggers me very well now. And I learned how I present to other people when I'm anxious. I learned that only a few people really knew I had anxiety. Other people just really didn't even know, so it was just this inner experience that I was having where I was panicking on the inside. But a lot of people, unless they knew me, really didn't know what was going on, or it came off as impatience and shortness a lot of times, because sometimes I'm really just an impatient person to begin with. So when I'm anxious and I'm kind of like snippy, people just think I'm being myself or being impatient during that time. So I learned how I present to other people, and I learned a lot about that. And throughout this time, I'm also getting into therapy as the therapist. So I'm talking to clients, and I started having young clients who had anxiety, and the things that I was teaching them and the things that I was working with them on, I started to implement in my own life as well. And so it was this theme of self-discovery and self-awareness and getting settled into my career and learning these new things about adulthood. So or just learning these things about myself in general. So I really got to learn exactly what my process was and what worked for me. So I'm going to share with y'all my 6 steps to managing anxiety. They're not 6 different things or 6 different tips, but it's just my personal 6 steps. So the first thing for me when I started to manage this anxiety that I had was learning my triggers, learning what made me feel overwhelmed, learning and being more aware of what was going on when I was feeling these symptoms, when my chest was beating fast, when I started to have racing thoughts, or when I was, easily agitated. What was going on during that time, so I can start identifying my triggers. Once I was able to do that, then I was able to do step 2, which was create boundaries. Letting people know what triggered me, or just not putting myself in certain situations that I knew would trigger me. Because it's happened before, so I know, hey, we just don't need to be doing that, Spree. We don't need to go and do that. So that was step 2, setting boundaries. Now, step 3 was expressing my needs to people. And that was a whole nother thing. It's a whole new experience of, having to ask for help or kind of create a situation yourself where you yourself are at mercy of a person. Whether, even if you're just asking for a certain type of living situation with a roommate, or which my experience with roommates, extreme anxiety, okay, woosah, that's a whole nother vlog. But I'm just saying, you have to express your needs and advocate for yourself so that you can get what you need to manage your anxiety, okay? So that was step 3, expressing your needs. Step 4 for me was learning that I can't avoid all my triggers. So whether I got people, I was creating a plan. You had to come up with a game plan, because you can't control every situation, you can't control every environment. So once I learned that I cannot avoid all triggers, I created a game plan, and that was step 4. So the holidays are good for that. Like, those family members that trigger you, come up with a game plan. Have your favorite cousin or sis or bro to come, save you out of that when they see it happening. Or, sometimes we sit out the dinner party, or, we just make an appearance because, we know we're going to be triggered. Holidays are so triggering sometimes. So definitely create a game plan and understand that you cannot, even if it's shopping, just a lot of stuff be going on during the holiday season. So you want to create a game plan for when you come in contact with your triggers, okay? Step 5, meditation as a lifestyle. Now, like I said, at first when I started doing meditation and learning about it, I wasn't consistent with it, and I didn't elevate and keep going. So when it stopped, I had my anxiety come back stronger than ever. And when I was able to start creating meditation as a lifestyle, then I was seeing that my anxiety started to subside. I was calm, cool, and collected, The 6th thing, and it's similar, but I do want to share with y'all, which is my biggest thing it's been 2018, and for 2019, it's going to be, one of my biggest platforms, is self-care. Self-care is one of the biggest things that I advocate for, because if you get into a daily routine, a self-care routine, whether or weekly, for me, I might, get to sleep in on a Wednesday morning, take an extra hour and change my schedule to where I go in an hour later on Wednesday, so I can get that alone time in the morning, or an extra hour of sleep, or whatever that might look like. I find pockets of time in my day where I'm able to take alone time or self-care, take yourself out to lunch, or if you're focusing more on financial self-care, you can find that article on my website or at The Voiceful. Shameless plug, if you read that article on financial self-care. You're learning all about this with me. You know, taking time to put that first, because financial self-care, financial health is so important to our overall health and our mental health. Just different things that you know are therapeutic or you know are self-soothing, finding pockets of time to get that in so that you can overall minimize stress in your lifestyle. So meditation as a lifestyle, and then also self-care activities or self-care, just anything as a part of your lifestyle. That's 5 and 6. Those are my 6 steps to managing self-care without medication. Okay, y'all, I really hope this was helpful for y'all. My personal experience with anxiety, meditation, self-care, early 20s, moving to a new city, all of that, and just how I manage my anxiety in general without medication. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. If so, make sure you share this with a friend. And until next time, I wish you all your version of success, happiness, and peace.